Okay, cool. I see we have a lot of people interested in the district budget here this evening. It's good to see you all. Nothing quiets a crowd at the word budget.
Good evening, everyone. Lapeer Community School Board of Education meeting is now called to order. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Watson, would you please lead us through the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. Okay, next on our agenda this evening is public comment. So a board meeting is a meeting of school district business held in public. It is not a public meeting. The board is not going to respond to those making public comment, but will direct the superintendent to follow up with the presenters. 30 minutes is set aside for public comment, so each presenter is being asked to keep their comments brief. The board does not comment in public on any student or employee, and we ask the presenters to be respectful of any person that they comment about. So this evening we have quite a few comment cards. So we have about 2 minutes for each presenter that would like to comment. And so Mary Moss will be keeping time for us. And we'll just have you guys come up one at a time. So Jolette, do it.
Good evening. I just wanted to come here to introduce myself. My name is Jolette Toit, and you guys may recognize my voice. I've been a regular person in the audience here, and I've never come up to speak, but I just wanted to come up and tell you thank you for all of the work that you guys do, each and every one of you that are volunteers here, that have day jobs, you own your businesses, you have dance recitals and soccer practices and things that you all juggle on top of what you're doing here tonight. And I just wanted to thank you for the hard work that you put in for a job that you donate your time to. Thanks.
Julie Fernandez.
Yep.
I am Julie Fernandez, and both my husband and I taught here from Lapeer Community Schools over 30 years, and we were honored to be distinguished educators, and all 3 of our kids attended Lapeer schools. And I've been meaning to get up to a meeting to talk to you about what would happen if ICE arrived at one of our schools. And hopefully there is some plan in place, but if not, I did bring some materials that myself and a group of other women have compiled, and we've been going to ethnic restaurants to let them know what their rights are, which has really helped them to feel a little more relaxed about that possibility. So on the top, this is the big one, the court warrant. It has to, the date can't be exceeded on here. It has to have the address if they're coming to the school, the address of the school, or if they're looking for an individual, they have to be named on here. It must be signed by a judge. And then the second one, the ICE warrant, and all the information is in here, it doesn't have the same teeth. I mean, they want to talk to somebody in charge, principal, building manager, whoever. The I-9 form is what we would have on file if we have have non-citizens working anywhere in the district. Once this is completed, it doesn't have to be redone every year, but ICE might ask for that, and you have 3 days to give them that information. So these are, the rest of the materials are self-explanatory, but I must tell you, one of the things that some of you may not know someone that's afraid. I happen to know a mother whose 6-year-old daughter came home from school and asked her mother if she was brown. Am I brown? And the mother had to tell her yes. And that also, is there a chance ICE would come to get me? And I know that your job is to keep our kids feeling safe and secure. So this is an important thing. Shall I hand these to you, Kim?
Okay, thank you. Sarah Walker.
Hi, my name is Sarah Walker. My son graduated from Pierce Schools in 23, and my daughter's a sophomore in Pierce High School. The reason I'm here today is because it was brought to my attention that there's some nasty books that are on our shelves, essentially, and I don't know where the pushback is at for getting those off our shelves, whether it's from the program that you guys want to implement or not implement, or if it's, the community that wants to keep, I don't really know all that. But I looked into a couple things today. I went to a website that showed all these books that are on our shelves in our school. There's 59 of these books on our high school library shelves and 24 in the middle school. And I screenshotted a couple excerpts that are from this material that's on our shelves. I'm just going to read it. He asked me to turn over while he slipped a condom onto himself, but this was my ass, and I was struggling to imagine someone inside me, and he was large, and I had previously topped someone who clearly enjoyed it, but he had been enjoying anal sex before I ever came along. He got on top and slowly inserted himself into me. He then added more lube and tried again, which felt better, but not by much. He began his stroking motion. Eventually, I felt a mix of pleasure with the pain. He didn't last long inside me, thankfully. He gave me a kiss before he pulled out. I didn't stay long, nor did I masturbate after. It really rocks my core that my daughter, who is 16, can read this type of material. It's a public school. It's my job to protect her. I trust the school. I trust you guys. I trust everyone. And I just do my best. And I was quite ashamed, actually, because I looked through the book list, and I have a couple on my own bookshelf at home. I didn't even know it was on this list. And I'm just here to talk about just protecting our kids from this type of stuff, and whatever program you guys have to implement to do that, which is really great for her and her kids and their kids and just future kids. So.
Heidi?
Heidi? Right up to the podium.
I just wanted to touch on the books that were pulled as well. And it's kind of concerning and that you never know if people are going to read the whole book or not. Because a lot of times people do just simply pull out excerpts, and you can't base a whole book just on excerpts. It's just not fair. But taking anything out of context, whether you're talking about the news or a book, it doesn't work. You don't get the full feeling of what's behind the story. So in considering these books, I really hope that people actually read the entire book. It is essential that you know the story surrounding the parts that are in it that you might not agree with. And also, yes, this is a public school, and that's part of the reason these books should be kept in the school, is because somebody that considers taking these books out protecting students, other people think that keeping these books in the schools are protecting students because it gives them a way of seeing the experience might not otherwise be able to see. So they have to, there are things that they might read about that they're not told about that are going to help them deal with situations that we might not know they're in. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Pacheco.
So I didn't want to talk tonight because I wanted a night off for being awesome at meetings. But then today I had this experience where I was in a situation where I had some time on my hands and there were a bunch of books. And so I looked to see if there were any of the books that have been, that were on the list. We were guessing are on the list. That was Take Back Our Classrooms, I think. It's on my phone and my phone's controlling the camera. But, so I can't read it from it directly, but and when you go to this site and it says, basically find the pedophilia that's in your local school libraries. And I don't know, I hope we're employing critical thinking skills because I don't know how you could see that site and not go, oh, this is an extremist site. This is an unreasonable site. And I know there's some big brains up here, some big education, some critical thinking. I've seen it in meetings, and so I hope you're employing that. But anyway, I picked up this book this morning and started reading it, and I was carrying it around, and someone saw me reading it and said, oh, so-and-so loves this book, you should go talk to her about it. She got me to read it. And as I was reading it, what I thought of is exactly what I've seen people experience in schools. You work in schools, you will meet kids who have been raped, like the girl in this book, and is trying to figure it out, and is trying to find the words to express it and get the help that she needed. That's exactly what the character in this book experienced. And I've read 4 of the books all the way through. I am partway through Law and Boy, and I'm partway through this one. And I can tell you all of them have great literary value. And the people who had recommended these to me today were English teachers who teach them. And by the way, I heard the author of this book was invited to Appear West a few years back and came to talk to people about it. So I hope you're employing all of our critical thinking skills and thinking about this is what people experience. Again, I know people who have. Thank you.
Thank you. Bridget?
So I know we are a diverse group of people. We all have different opinions and thoughts, but I just wanted to say how sad I was to hear about books being pulled from the library. I firmly believe that not every book is for everyone, but every book is for someone. I believe that reading should be encouraged and always appreciated when you see someone who wants to grow their love of reading. And the idea that you would remove the books from the library with no warning from the staff or the students, I know from having spoken to students, has been upsetting. I have children in my life who are upset. I know growing up that my school library was a safe haven for me. I didn't always have, I was very sick as a child. I'm still very sick and disabled. I often missed a lot of school, so I would spend a lot of time in that library doing work. And when I wasn't at school and I was too sick to do stuff, I would read. So books were my constant companions. And 2 of the books on this list were books I read in high school. The Lovely Bones in 19 Minutes. They were beautiful. They were heartbreaking. They taught me things I would never have experienced. And they gave me a perspective into something I hadn't experienced and I don't ever want to experience. But they gave me empathy. And they helped me learn. And I think that's important. And I think that's something really important in a diverse community. And some of those books can help people even if they're not directed at them. They can give them a perspective. And I just, as mentioned, there might be passages that on the front of it look terrible, but you have to read the context. That's what we were taught in school. Reading comprehension and context. And I just want to say I trust our librarians at this school and I trust our staff and I thank you all for your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. Rhonda?
I enjoy books. I love what they have to teach me. I love the voice of a narrator or character in my head as I read their words on the page. I hope everyone has books they love in their own way. There's nothing more personal than our feelings and reactions to the people, places, and times written about in the books we read. I have a list of favorite books. My list is different from every other list of every other person in this room, I think. Every book isn't for me, every book might not be for you, but every book is for someone. So the issue of banning books, telling another person a book isn't for them because it wasn't for you, is a pretty subjective endeavor. However, I think a fair starting point for the debate over the merits of a book is actually reading the entire book and attempting to understand its author and its purpose before calling for its removal. A problem we've had with the Lapeer District Library from the beginning is people calling for the removal of books they haven't actually read. You can tell it's obvious. English literature teachers understand. So it's a bit of a quandary if Superintendent Wandry believes that the individual or group of people who call for the removal of 83 books from Lapeer School libraries have really read those 83 books. Did their removal request come with explanations of the plots and themes and sound arguments that those individual books can harm their readers? Furthermore, do these self-stylized critics have an understanding of the evolution of literature as an art form, a means of expression of the author's experience, their thoughts, their imagination? This kind of understanding, this expertise, is what librarians, teachers of literature, and writers are taught. It's what their degrees are based upon. So I ask the superintendent and this board to acknowledge this training and expertise when evaluating books in the collection. Simply compiling a list of 83 books one finds objectionable does not establish the list maker as an expert. I hope this body will take a step back from the quicksand of censorship, turn you to your educators, and listen to your students and future students.
That's time. Thank you.
Thank you. William Gabet.
Yes, hi, good evening. First off, as you others have said, thank you for all that you guys do. It's a pretty thankless job a lot of times. Been in the district for 30 some years. My youngest graduated in 2014. Been done very well, both went to college, things have gone really well. This where we are now, my daughter and I had our first daddy-daughter dance. So I've been with the district a long time, volunteered for about a decade doing after-school programs, because I thought it was worthwhile. You guys in the district, we went through 30 some years. We couldn't get a bond passed. We couldn't get a bond passed because the public did not trust what the district was doing. Now, Lapeer has been very successful the last couple times, and the last couple bond issues, and why? Because people trust. We believe in the district, we believe in the superintendent, we believe that you guys are going to look out for the best interests of our children. We can respectfully, all in this room, disagree on a lot of things. That doesn't make anybody wrong, it just means that we can respectfully disagree. But in this particular thing, you want to be mindful of the fact that people have thrown their support behind you because we trust you. That can change. We don't, with my kids, there was an issue a long time ago with busing. They took, at that time, Lapeer schools cut the busing to anybody over 8th grade. My kids, I drove them. If my kids needed something, I provide for them. It's not the school's job to raise my child, it's the school's job to teach. And all I can say is I have my trust and my faith in this district. I really hope that it's in a good place. I remember meeting that young man when he was stepping here for the first time. So thank you very much.
Thank you. William Hamilton.
Thank you. I just want to say that I support the effort to review the books in the library and make sure they're appropriate for children in the schools. I support the use of TakeBackTheClassroom.com as one resource to help review those. find it disturbing that a book with the excerpt that was read previously by another commenter, that's in our schools, and that our kids are reading that, and is that really what you want kids to be having access to? Society protects children from certain things because they're not mature or ready for them. We don't just hand a driver's license to a kid without training. We don't allow kids to smoke pot or buy cigarettes or drink alcohol until an appropriate age. Communities trust me to protect these kids and hope you do the right thing and appropriate thing and review the materials that are in the library and remove things that should not be there. Thank you.
Tom Coleman?
Hi, I'm Tom Coleman from Deerfield Township, and I'm actually the former chairman of the Liverpool County Board of Commissioners. I'm going to take a little different approach as a forewarning as you guys kind of move into this whole book reconsideration thing. I want to speak to you today is not only to encourage you, but also to warn you of the negative comments and pushback that you're likely going to receive from many that are here tonight about the books you're reconsidering. I recognize a lot of them, and they're the same people who came to our county commission meetings when I was on the board. They still come to this day. They go to the county commission meetings now, the township meetings, library meetings, pleading their case as why they think sexually graphic books should be available to children. They'll make you think that they're the majority, when in fact they're just the extremely loud minority. They'll come up with all sorts of outlandish reasons on why you don't have authority and how you're violating the constitutional rights of children. They believe children should be able to look at pretty much anything that they want at the expense of the taxpayers. You might be called a bigot, you might be called a Nazi, you might even hear them call you a white Christian nationalist. You might hear that you're homophobic or you're against the LGBTQ community. They may even claim that you're pushing your religious beliefs onto them, and then they'll misuse separation of church and state as an attempt to prove their point. You're going to hear how that you don't have the right to remove books or even restrict books. You may even be threatened with a lawsuit, but the fact of the matter is they're all empty threats. Their tactics are the same no matter where they go. There's plenty of Michigan law on the books that gives districts, school districts, and libraries a framework to operate based on what's called community standards. And I'm going to bet if you stood outside of our community at any local store in town and showed 100 people the books that you're reconsidering, that 95% of them would say those books should not be accessible to children and should not be paid for with hard-earned tax dollars. I'm here to encourage you to block out the white noise and to do the job that you were elected to do and provide the children of Lapeer Community Schools with quality reading material that doesn't inhibit their growth and bastardize the original intent of local education. Thank you.
Carrie?
Good evening, my name is Carrie Coleman. I'm here to support the review and removal of sexually explicit and developmentally inappropriate material from our school libraries. This issue is not about banning books or restricting ideas. It's about responsibility, trust, and age-appropriate education. Our children come to school to learn, to grow, and to prepare for their future. They come to develop critical thinking skills, academic knowledge, creativity, and character. They should be able to do this in an environment that is safe, age-appropriate, and focused on education, not exposure to sexually explicit or inappropriate material that distracts them from their learning and growth. Parents entrust schools with something precious, their children. That trust includes the reasonable expectation that school libraries contain sound, educational material aligned with developmental readiness and community standards. For the vast majority of parents, this trust does not extend to sexually explicit content being made accessible to minors without parental knowledge or consent. This is not about censorship. It is not about banning ideas or silencing voices. It is about discernment and responsibility. There is a clear and important difference between freedom of information and entertainment content, especially when it comes to children. Schools exist to educate, not to expose. To guide, not to prematurely introduce adult themes that parents should have the right to address on their own terms and timeline. We can support intellectual freedom while also recognizing that children are not adults and school libraries are not public bookstores. Age matters, context matters, and purpose matters.
By taking steps to review and remove sexually explicit and inappropriate materials from school libraries, you are not restricting opportunity, you are protecting it. You are helping students focus on learning, curiosity, creativity, and growth. You are reinforcing the partnership between schools and families. And you are sending a clear message that student well-being comes first.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Judy Warnke. I retired from Lapeer Schools as a media care pro. I worked at Lapeer West, and yes, we did have the author of Speak Up to the School to talk with the students, because yes, we did read that book. We also read 19 Minutes, and we had Jody Calton quite a few times. The students enjoyed reading the books. There was a lot of communication done. 19 Minutes is not considered so much a school shooting book if you actually read it. It's a book about bullying and what students go through with bullying. And we had a lot of communication done about that. And students came expressing themselves about the times they were bullied in school and about the times they did the bullying in schools. I believe we have to have a large selection of books for all students. We also had a student whose parents came up, called me, or called Don Hayes, who was the head of the library. And they were concerned because their child had taken home the Mein Kampf book. And they were told to bring it right back to the school. And in speaking with parents, we decided that the easiest way was to let the parents know each time their child wanted to check out a book because he was so fascinated by Nazi paraphernalia and history. We were also able to find out that he did enjoy car repair. So we actually got him going on car repair books that he did enjoy, and the parents were very appreciative of it.
That's fine, thank you. Thank you. Leslie, yes?
Leslie Getz, resident of the district in Mayfield Township and educator. I too heard the rumor about books being removed from the libraries, and what I heard was that they were removed based on the request of one person without following the procedures and policies that are in place for this district. So I did not come today to debate the merits of individual books. I came to say that I support the administration and support the board in following their procedures, looking at these books appropriately, and following the procedures and the laws that are in place.
Thank you. Jean Kuhn?
I'm gonna have to edit, I thought we were given 5 minutes. Good evening, my name is Jean Kuhn. I'm a resident of Lapeer County since 1978, and I'm a retired teacher after 31 years, 29 of which I spent in Lapeer. I entered the district as an English teacher and retired as a French teacher. It was my honor and privilege to serve the students of Lapeer West High School, home of the Panthers. I want to thank Mr. Wandry for taking a good half hour with me on the phone yesterday to inform me and discuss the issue that I had heard about, that several books had been pulled from shelves. And as we talked, I learned that those books were pulled as a response to one individual's email referencing the website takebacktheclassroom.com. After our discussion, I looked up takebacktheclassroom.com because I wanted to know who we needed to take the classroom back from. And so when I did take a look at this site, I found this. Pornographic books have infiltrated classrooms and libraries for the purpose of grooming our children under the guise of education. It's time to take back control. I think there's actually a horrible assertion against teachers, and I firmly believe in accountability for teachers. I only seen a portion of the 83 books list, and I'm not really familiar with TakeBackTheClassroom.com beyond what I looked at yesterday. I do know that these 83 books at one point were considered, deemed appropriate, purchased, and placed on the library shelves, and I wonder why they're being scrutinized now. Mr. Wandry has assured me that a committee of media specialists, English teachers, and among others, would be reviewing, not blindly banning these titles. I trust that there is an established rubric for approving books that will be followed. Books that meet the criteria must be returned to the shelves. And I volunteered quite emphatically to Mr. Wandry yesterday that I would like to be a member of the committee.
Thank you. Peggy, I don't mean to butcher names.
Peggy Brodsky.
Close.
So I too have recently heard that a sizable number of books have been pulled from Lapeer School's library shelves. If this is true, I am hoping that this will be addressed during the superintendent and board comments. I would like to learn more about this and hear about the next steps for the pulled books. I would like you to know that I support a review of concerning books, and I feel it is very important to take a good look at the process of how they make it onto the library shelves in the first place. It is good to know that the well-being of Lapeer students is top priority and that you are willing to look at potential problems with the current Lapeer School Library Collection Development policies. It's important that the library books align with our community standards, and I'm happy to hear that this is being recognized. Just because a book has made its way to a library shelf doesn't mean it's a healthy choice for students. I recently learned of a book in our public library titled Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl that has pervasively vulgar content. It is my understanding that this book is also in the school library catalog at Denver. The book description and professional reviews used by our public library give no indication that such content will be there. So there it sits, available to young readers who have no idea what they are about to be exposed to. I want to thank you for your work and all you do on behalf of our students and families.
Thank you.
Hi there. I also would like to thank Superintendent Wandry. He took some time with me yesterday as well, and I am very confident that this district does look out for the well-being of students. I do think that many of us here have a different idea, however, what our job is with our students. As an educator and as a parent, I always believed I was raising my child and the students in my classroom to be responsible adults. I keep hearing the word children, 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 and I think a lot of people have the idea that somehow we are going to protect our children until they turn that magic age of 18, flip a switch, and now they're going to be ready to be responsible adults. We live in a pretty complex world. Our students need to be exposed to many ideas. They need to learn analysis. They need to be able to apply their own values and moral standards. I hear people are concerned about what books their children may read. Your child, by the time they get to high school, should know your family's values pretty well. And I would expect my child to make selections with that in mind, and I feel confident they did. The other thing that we need to think about is that we have professionals, media specialists who are making these selections according to district policy. These books did not just land on the shelf in some very erratic way. They were carefully selected using many quality guidelines. I trust those people to make those choices. We should not ever randomly pull books off of a shelf based on a list without first going through a careful process. And I hope that we see that process evolve. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Andrew Cook, a resident of Mayfield Township. Haven't been in this building in probably 28 years. Okay, being more than that, I graduated from Irwin Elementary.
Well, Bill is hosting a dance afterwards, so.
There you go. Outstanding. There's absolutely no context of any kind that could make the clip, the excerpt that was read earlier, appropriate for a minor. No context. And everyone in this room knows that. There's no context. So any discussion of, well, you got to read the whole book is completely, it totally misses the mark to try to be generous. We know that there's no context that would make that okay. And furthermore, we all believe there are books that should not be on a library shelf. For example, if an author was to write a book, How to Kill Yourself, and all the characters in the book graphically ended their own lives with steps on how to do it, and even Amazon links to get the materials. Everyone in this room would agree that that book does not belong in a school library. We all agree that. We're not talking about censorship here, we're talking about selection for appropriate materials for minors. I understand they're not baby children, but they are minors. Also, every internet connection at every school in this district is censored. Every internet connection. You don't let the kids come into a school and load up Pornhub. There's no way. It has to be blocked. And everybody agrees. But for some reason, there's a misconception that if the pornographic, explicit act is put in words, that it makes it okay because it has some fictitious literary value. It's completely ridiculous, and we all know it. We must protect our children from inappropriate depictions of sexual acts. It is totally inappropriate for our children to encounter that kind of thing in school. Thank you for your time.
Stephanie Hamilton.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Hamilton. I'm from Lapeer Township. There have been a lot of comments made tonight that I would love to respond to, but I'm going to spare everybody the time. So I'm just going to come up here, and I would like to state that I fully support the idea of a committee that goes through and reviews the books that are put into schools. And whatever resources you need to use, TakeBackTheClass.com would be a wonderful website to just start the process of learning about these books and what they say. It's a lot to figure out what are in, 80-something books that were pulled. So that would maybe be a good place to start. So thank you for everything that you do. I hope you take these comments into consideration.
Thank you.
Already. I got kind of drug into this situation, and I have watched people at library board meetings, and they will stand behind their, quote, Christian beliefs. You cannot protect a kid from what they don't know exists. I have never heard the headlines of a librarian grooming a child, molesting a child. It's happened in scout troops. It's happened in parochial schools, churches. I hope this board will have backbone enough not to become the puppet of a few people who want to homeschool and not have religious conviction, but what I call Bible thump. Don't become their puppet to remove it. There was a process, and all through this, there's been a group of people look at books, and I'm sure if they were that horrible, that terrible, somebody in the committee that puts books in the library would have went, I have a problem with. I just hope you guys will stand up and let the kids read this stuff and go to mom and dad and say, gee, this is really creepy. This is really icky. Don't do the job of the people that can't, won't, or don't spend time with their kids to teach them what they figure their beliefs really are.
Thank you. And Mr. Leroy, I can't read your first name.
Jacob.
Okay, Jacob.
Hi, I'm Jacob Leroy. I graduated from Lapierre's High School in 2011, and I now have a child enrolled in the district. I just wanted to take some time to say a few things tonight. I do support the superintendents using resources such as TakeBackTheClassroom.com, the screen books for suitability in our public library. I believe there are some topics parents would like to address with their children on their own and not have the school, which is the government, get involved on these topics. Removing certain books from the public school library, the community finds objectionable, is not banning the books. This is our community, one of our community libraries. We have many schools have them. We have the Peer District Library, there's more of them. And those are funded by the community, and so the community has a say in what is the curation of the books that are going on in the library. I'd like to also say that several other commenters have put their faith in whatever nebulous committee, organization, library association that has approved these books to be put in our libraries. But we, the community, put our faith in you, the school board, and in Matt, the superintendent. And so that's why I support you and the superintendent taking this action to review these books tonight. Another commenter said that, if the child has had some horrible things happen to them, that they might find comfort in there. I don't think that this public school is an appropriate place for them to deal with that. I think there's other resources that the parents and the child have available to them in our community to deal with those situations. I also like to say, since another commenter brought it up, that should ICE appear at the school must comply with federal law enforcement fully, and the illegal aliens must be deported. Thank you.
That concludes our public comment for this evening. We will continue on in our agenda. Next, we have our presentation. So I'll hand it over to you, Superintendent.
Thank you, Madam President. It is my honor to introduce Eric Ingalls, our Director of Finance, to share with you a budget update, a development process, forecast, and enrollment. Erica, the floor is yours.
You got quite the crowd tonight to present this lovely budget.
Lucky you.
All right, here we go. So tonight I just kind of want to talk about the overall view of, or the kind of overall process of where we are in the budget, where we are today. Take a look at budget variables, enrollment projections, budget impacts and forecasts, and kind of where the district sits in the long-term kind of strategic plan. So I'm not going to read this slide by slide, but kind of just want to get some of the key points on the development process. We have two opening bargaining units this time around. We have food service and LESP. So we're kind of starting that work in January. We had a great meeting today with our union leadership, kind of laying out kind of what you're hearing tonight with our SCUL, where we call our unit leaders. We have our first budget managers meeting next Wednesday. In March and April, we will have another budget managers, probably a third one in April, in preparation to take a budget, an adopted budget to you in June. So budget variables, so kind of what we do to look at, to build to finish the amendment on this fiscal year and kind of start next year. Kind of look at these variables. We take a state level and local, and then kind of, where do we sit? So today, this is kind of a mixture between the national and state. So inflation remains low. It's kind of the lowest level since September, well below the federal full employment rate. Recession still remains real, but the feds are going to target, hopefully a soft landing.
The state general fund is general purpose, so we call it GF and GP, so you hear us with a lot of acronyms in school of finance. That still remains challenging, but the school aid fund, what we call the SAF, is still relatively healthy. Efforts are underway to make reductions to balance the general fund. And then pupil trends are continuing to decline at the state level, and we're seeing roughly about 10,000 students a year. So what does this all mean? So in school districts, we have what we call our base revenue calculation. So that's kind of how we get our base revenue for the district. So what we do is we take our number of students times our per pupil foundation allowance, which kind of comes up with this what we call the base foundation. So for example, if we take our enrollment today, we got 4,133 students, and today we received a foundation allowance of 10,050. That gives us roughly $41 million to kind of cover salaries, wages, as far as operating costs. On top of that, you're going to get grant revenue, special education reimbursements, categorical money, miscellaneous local revenue. So, you just kind of build on that base foundation. In order to maintain our district's revenue from year to year, we need roughly between $125 and $375 per pupil to maintain that funding. So if you take a look at the example, we need to maintain 41.5 million, we can't lose, or we have to, let me take that back. If we lose 50, we need to make about 125 in foundation allowance for next year. If we lose 100 students, we need at least $250 to cover that foundation revenue. This next chart is where we are today as a state level. So you can see at the state level that enrollment is declining. 74% traditional districts are experiencing pupil decline. So you can see, back in '95, as a state level, we had 1.6 million, and by fiscal year 28, we're seeing about 1.35 million. So we're seeing it at a local level, but we're also seeing it at a statewide level. It's not just up here that we're seeing that declining enrollment. This next slide lays out since 2014 kind of where the district stands historically as it relates to enrollment. We engaged with a company called Michigan Alliance. We've been using Stanford consultants. They've been doing our projections for the last couple of years. We wanted to take a kind of a different approach to it this year and engage with this Michigan Alliance. And they relatively hit pretty much in kind of the same general aspects of where we're going pupil-wise. So you can see in 2014, we started out at 5,463 students. And today, where we stand in 2025, you can see that we're at about 4,133 students. So from 2014 to 2024, 2025, we've lost roughly 1,333 FTE students over the last 10, 11 years. What Michigan Alliance did is they came in and said, okay, we gave them all of our historical information, kind of build us a kind of what I call projection or forecast of where we can see the district going from 27 to 32. Luckily, we're hoping that we see kind of that level up. You can see, from year to year, we're right around between 100 and 150 students that we're losing, and like I said, hopefully we'll see that level up between 27 and 32. You can see in 2032, we're going to be a district of about 3,800 kids. And keeping in mind, in 2014, we were at 5,000. So how we manage our resources. So I'd like to show this graph just because this is kind of shows where we are with revenue and expenses over a time period. So 2020, we'll kind of take that COVID example, and where we stand with revenues, where we stand with expenses with an overlay of fund balance. So you can see in 2020, 2021, I'll take a step back and not do 22 yet, 23 and 24, you can see revenues have exceeded expenditures. And you can see that fund balance kind of continuing to grow and or maintain flat. In 22, we had an accounting adjustment that we've had to use, and that was just in relation to kind of an auditing procedure that we had to reclass and adjust our unearned revenue that we just didn't have booked in time that we received the dollars. That was earned in 23, so you just kind of see that accounting adjustment in 22. Fund balance history. So I like to show this chart just because you can see over time, 2015 to 2025, that the district has really done a great job at growing that fund balance. Fund balance refers to the money left over after all the bills are paid. This is like the general definition. So you can see, 2015 you start out at 5%. You have the column of what kind of 5% means at the district level, so what does that equate to in dollars? Our board goal is 10%, and our state average is about 10%. You can see in 2020 when COVID hit, kind of you see those COVID dollars kind of helping, supplant our fund balance. You can see fund balance kind of going up to that 7 million, and a state average of 19%. You see that 22, you see a slight dip again, that it's related to that accounting adjustment, but then continues to grow at 23, 24, and then you take a dip in fund balance in 2025. 2025, our state average is not available yet. This is a slide that our auditors showed. I think you can see in our October presentation of where we stand as expenditures. We like to show this graph because everyone thinks, oh, if we have to cut, where do we cut? Well, we are a people business, so where do we cut? We cut in salaries and fringe. You can see that 81% of our expenditures are in salaries and fringes. We've got a little bit of people costs and purchase services, consulting, GEMS 31AA people, some grant funded staff are in there. But when you're looking at cutting or reducing expenditures at all, you can't go say, oh, and we're going to cut 1.7 million in capital outlay. That's only 3% of our budget. So when we really need to, in times, reduce our expenditures, we're looking at that salary and fringe. And we all know that school districts are a people business.
Okay, thank you. I'll take over from here. So when you look at the historical context that Erica provided and our finance department provided, it led us to the current adopted budget. What are some of those circumstances that have contributed to a bit of a worsening picture that I want to share with the board, and what the work looks like moving forward. So the board is aware that the deficit budget was adopted for fiscal 25-26. The good news is we've been able to, as an administrative team, make about a little over $1 million in reduction for the current fiscal year. I'll share with you in the next slide what those specific items were. But for those unfamiliar with public school finance and public school budgeting, it's very rarely a definitive beginning and end. There's an amendment process after an adopted budget whereby revenues and other variables are not known at the time of budget adoption. So we've had some of those variables break against the district, changes in the retirement rate, delays in district property sales that we accounted for in the spring prior to the June adoption, to the tune of about $2 million, kind of broke in an unfavorable direction for us. Some of those are anticipated, and some of those are unanticipated. Obviously, the board is aware, based on the audit presentation and our update on enrollment in the fall, that we have experienced a greater student loss than projected in the creation of the current fiscal year budget. Obviously, some significant reductions in grant funding, and those things are still unknown, which is why at the bottom line you see an overall scope of the remaining deficit being a range of somewhere between $3 and $4 million, because additional variables may break for or against the district depending on some legal issues right now as it relates to 31AA. The board is aware of pending litigation regarding that source of funding. And so we'll have continual amendments and updates to the board as to the current standing of this fiscal year budget. So the current year reductions, we've been able to identify a number of district level reductions, so cutting some district administrative staff, changing and shifting some funding out of the general fund and easing some pressure for our deans. We were able to reduce approximately 40% of our dean's salaries and shift that to grant funding, easing some pressure in the general fund. Building budget reductions, some shifting on some of our third-party vendor contracts and reducing some staff and some costs there. And then some operational one-time costs that don't necessarily need to carry over, we're also able to reduce. So it demonstrates that we've got to roll our sleeves up and make some reductions, and that will persist beyond the current amendment process, beyond the next 2 fiscal years. And that's work that in my 15 years as superintendent we are not unfamiliar with. So as we have begun to deal with declining enrollment as a function of declining birth rate in the county, declining population in the state of Michigan, and a variety of variables, we have, I think, done a pretty good job of reducing our costs, reducing the footprint of the district, and trying to educate kids in a different way, but also marketing some pretty unique programs that we've ushered in over the last decade and a half, which we will demonstrate momentarily, that has really helped to offset and mitigate some of these losses. So a couple things we want to do. We're finishing up the 4th year of our most recent bond passage, and we've begun to engage with Barton Mallow, our construction management firm, to take a deeper dive and conduct 2 what we think are pretty important studies, that being facility utilization research and an operational efficiency study, both of which will provide us some context and some data, not only on the relative physical plant health of our structures, but how they're currently utilized and the level of efficiency and or inefficiency based on student population, teaching space capacity, current utilization of our FTE from a human resource perspective, and be able to provide us some directional support if we choose to close and or market for sale certain facilities, if we choose to do any building reconfiguration, grade level reconfiguration. I think it's important that we start with some data. That information will be expected here shortly in the spring of 26. So in the coming months, we'll have the results to share with the board and the community. So some ideas moving forward. Certainly we are already beginning to execute some reductions in administrative staff that are not waiting for the 27-28 year. Those are going to be put into place and implemented as recently as next school year. Taking a look with our budget managers group, our union leaders, our board of education, our staff, our community about some potential district reconfiguration and staffing efficiency options for the 27-28 school year. I was reminded today in a meeting that the district, the community, the parents and staff are undergoing what they refer to as change fatigue. No one is more fatigued, or how shall I put it, Mr. Wandry's in a quandary, which I think I may turn that into a bumper sticker and place on my family's vehicles. But yeah, as am I. But it is incumbent upon us as the leadership of the district to continue to manage in a fiscally responsible way the district's limited resources. And that means making some tough decisions like merging 2 high schools your 2nd year as superintendent, which is a lot of fun. But we've done that in the past, and we have demonstrated as a community that we have absorbed these changes. We've led with innovation and different ways of reaching out to our community and offering programs that kids and families find valuable. We need to evaluate, as Erica alluded to, our current collective bargaining agreements. As she mentioned, this is no surprise to anyone, this is a people business. So evaluating staffing efficiencies, evaluating current bargaining agreements as they relate to fringes and benefits and wage. And then lastly, we're gonna re-exercise the marketing muscle of the district, which was fully in shape 10, 11, 12 years ago, as we really stared down the barrel of the idea of going from a 2 high school town to a 1 high school town. And that was just an unbelievably rewarding experience to engage the community about not only the history of East and West, but what Lapeer might look like in the future, returning to being a 1 high school town. And now, when I came here in 2011-12, we had 7 elementaries, but there was 12 elementary schools in Lapeer as recently as 2007. So I'm telling you right now, these facility studies and operational efficiency studies, this is not splitting the atom. These studies are going to come back and say that we've got some space, we've got some available space, we have room to consolidate, and room to reduce the footprint, tighten up the operation, and in our estimation, focus on what's most important, which is the experience kids have inside the classroom walls, those 4 walls. The address of the building, not as important as the experience in the room with the teacher once the door is shut. That's a principle that we believe in. Next slide, please. So, this is going to look like a bunch of gobbledygook, so I would encourage the board and those watching to just bear with me as I explain this. But conceptually, these 2 options, I can guarantee whatever we end on for 27-28 relative to district configuration will look probably considerably different than what you're seeing now. But in an effort to generate conversation, to begin to unearth some deep thinking about what things may look like, this is an opportunity to do that. So this is more of a thought experiment than well thought out options, because we are far too early in the process. I heard a lot about context this evening. I heard a lot about reading the entirety of texts. I heard a lot about critical thinking and thoughtful review. And so I encourage those in the audience and those on the board to engage in all of those wonderful recommendations now. Because we're not at the point yet where I can say to the community, here are the 4 options, they're cast in stone, let's vote on it. This is a thought experiment. So the left-hand column, option A, represents an idea whereby all Lapeer students would begin their kindergarten experience together in the same building. Referred to there as Building 1. Right? We have 13 buildings, 13 structures in this district. Some of them, like ASC, don't service students, but they are a building that we pay to operate and maintain. One may argue that we may be able to, given our current student enrollment, operate efficiently and more effectively with around 7, 8, or 9 buildings. Okay, so including things like ASC, other district-owned properties like Mayfield, and current existing schools, we've labeled those benignly as buildings 1, 2, 3, middle school 1 and 2, and so forth. The idea being one option of how we organize the district looks like all kids transitioning together truly as one Lapeer from the time they begin in early 5s in kindergarten and matriculate through their educational experience here. You see this slide towards the bottom that says additional programs / staff to assign. So you've got programs that are currently either A, housed in existing facilities like Kids and Company is a wing at Rowan Warner, or ASC, which is a standalone central office facility, or our Maple Grove campus, which is now partially rented out to local groups, but is still owned by the district, and currently also a portion of that facility is utilized by district programs. Can we consolidate some of those peripheral programs, right? Can they be contained inside of existing school facilities as a function of maximally using our space? Option 2, or another way to get at this, would be something akin to what you see in option B, which is reducing an existing elementary school, having 3 similarly sized K-5 elementaries, and then the rest of the district kind of matriculation looking similar to option A. So it's the idea of kind of the maintenance of the neighborhood elementary school concept on the right, compared and contrasted to what you see in option A, which is more of a kind of a uniform articulation through the K-12 experience. I can share with you quite confidently that when looking at the pros and the cons and variables with just these two kind of simple concepts, when you start overlaying other variables like transportation, like school start and end times, like staffing efficiency, that there are that certain options, both of these, emerge as better than the other. What will also further inform us would be a geographic location of particular existing school facilities in coordination and in concert with their relative health as a facility, as determined by the facility utilization study and operational efficiency work. So it's more important that conceptually right now we fixate less on which buildings will house which grade levels or which programs, and more on what do we want the school experience to look like for our kids, right? And what are some things that you find appealing based on these? I can already share that based on those variables that I mentioned, like transportation and staffing efficiency, we have already identified probably 2 or 3 other legitimate options. They are just variations on these 2 themes. So so as not to confuse us and kind of what our work today is, we did not want to necessarily articulate those in writing, but they're there and they are going to be vetted out. And as we meet with staff, meet with community groups, continue to engage with board committees, the board as a whole, we're going to flush some of these things out. Good news, bad news, right? Good news is it's not even the spring of 26, right? We're not talking about this change until 27, 28. So we feel as though we want to expose the community to these ideas with enough time to vet them and to collect and solicit feedback. For those of you that were really involved in our last round of kind of robust district reconfiguration when we converted the Zemmer and Roland Warner campus to 6, 7, and 8, 9 buildings respectively. We had 10, 11, and 12 Lapeer High School. We made the decision to make the east site Lapeer High School. There was considerable debate about this one Lapeer idea, about when do we begin to bring the kids together. One of the options you'll recall for Roland Warner and Zemmer was to make those both 6, 7, 8, 9 buildings, and maybe divided by east and west or north and south. That was my idea, and it was soundly defeated by the community, and we ultimately did not head in that direction, so that's okay. What we ended up with was a great configuration for the time being. Also understand, board, and I know you know this, but school district reconfiguration is largely a function of what existing buildings you have as a district, as opposed necessarily to what do we think is best. Here's a blank slate, and let's just start, zero-based, ground zero, and go from there. The great part about engaging with Barton Mallow is they do this work in multiple districts, not just in our area, but across the state. They have shared with us some pretty significant imperatives that should inform us about our work. For example, I won't name the district, but there's one very similar size to Michigan, not too far from Lapeer, that is literally having the exact same discussion. Small neighborhood schools, but none of which are large enough to house any grade levels of significance. They're literally considering passing a bond to build an elementary school so they can close the remaining elementary schools. Try getting the community behind that idea, right? That would be quite complex. So when I say good news, bad news, we're fortunate. We've got lots of space, meaning that we're currently operating less efficient than we'd like to, but it does mean we're going to have to make some decisions moving forward. We're confident that given this knowledge and the community feedback and your work as board members, that we can flush this out and do that. Ultimately, what we have to do, if you look at the bottom slide, closing and or marketing for sale 5 of those facilities is something that the district needs to do. We need to reduce the footprint of the district, just operationally speaking. The buildings we maintain, care for, pay for, those costs, both hidden and known, they add up, and they're ongoing and they're perpetual, and we need to. It's hard to go. When I came here, we had 6,200 students in 2011, 12, 6,100, somewhere around there. We were a big dog, and we're not a big dog anymore. And sometimes it's hard. I see some of our former employees coming back and seeing this information. we're bigger than Flint Community Schools at 4,100 students. That's an amazing thing to consider. You know, when Flint once upon a time had, what, 4 high schools in it? So times are changing for everybody. And no one is gonna come in to Lapeer with a magic solution and say, we think you should do this. This is the best way to go about it. That work is gonna be incumbent on the folks sitting at this table. All right, so wrapping up, again, just with the timeline here of what we have to do until an adopted budget in June, we are going to continue to evaluate reductions to the current fiscal year budget so as to ease the pressure of ultimately what has to be done in that $3 or $4 million number. And some of those things are going to be inside of our control, some of them are not. But we wanted to just make the community aware tonight of the work we're going to engage in, and we're excited to do that with all of you. That concludes our presentation. Questions for Erica, myself, or anyone at home?
Thank you. Thank you, Erica. Okay. Next up.
Well, this is a timely topic, the superintendent evaluation process, and since I don't manage my own evaluation, I want to hand it over to our very capable Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Mrs. Kim Sieferle.
Thank you very much. I'm not going to try to take a whole lot of time this evening, but every year in March, actually every other year now, the board conducts the superintendent evaluation. Performance evaluation of educators in the state of Michigan is highly regulated, and so there's lots of rules we have to follow. And actually, if you can go to the next slide,
You can.
it's me. Fantastic. I know.
Right arrow.
Arrow. Press an arrow. Arrow's being pressed. Oh, there we go.
Support.
Okay. Maybe the left arrow. I pointed it the wrong way.
Why don't we just say the evaluation is going to be great?
It's going to be great. So it is highly regulated in Michigan, and one of the things that you're going to find is there's a lot of consistency. I'm really here just to kind of give a quick overview of what's going to happen really primarily between now and next month when we meet next at the March board meeting. There will be, is when the evaluation is actually conducted. Lots going on that night, so we always just like to kind of lay out the details and provide some background information. Again, highly regulated in Michigan. Lots of things we have to include. Our process is completely compliant with all of those pieces. There we go. And if you want more information, if you click on the transparency page on the district website, you can actually find details about teacher evaluation system administrator and the superintendent evaluation system. So all of this is very transparent, and you can get to it where it's supposed to be. Something new this year, the state actually approves certain tools for us to use, and this is the first year we have actually switched. The board a year ago, we engaged in some conversation about updating the tool itself. The prior tool, while it worked pretty well for us, there were some legislative changes that came out, and it was kind of the feeling that that tool didn't adapt to those changes quite as well as we had hoped. And so we kind of went on the hunt and found a tool that we felt better aligned with the new requirements of Michigan. It just so happens that Collins and Block PC, which is what the superintendent evaluation, that is also the evaluation tool. This is the superintendent piece, but there is a companion administrator evaluation tool, and we also use the Collins and Block PC tool. We trained the board in the spring, and then as new board members come on, they get the opportunity to meet with me and get some training on the evaluation process as well. Here's a very quick overview. Again, consistent. This is for the superintendent and all compliant with the law. As long as somebody has 3 years of effective evaluations, they can go on to biannual evaluations. So last year there was not an evaluation because we were on biannual, and so this year is the evaluation. We kick off that process in April. Around the fall, October, November, Matt provides an update. In February, that's here tonight, actually following my presentation. I think you're going to hear the second update. And we house a lot of this information. This is not a one-time thing. There is a Google system, which as things occur, as events happen, as evidence of these different areas that you're going to evaluate Matt on, as those occur, they're placed in the Google files. So it's a live kind of project that's always happening, and it always provides you the opportunity to kind of stay in the loop of what's happening and what's going on. Again, the year-long process really concludes in March with that formal evaluation. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. In Michigan, here's another one of those regulated components. Student growth as a percentage of the evaluation process, it's actually changed over the years. Presently, right now, it's 20%, and so 20% of the overall is going to be a student growth score, 80% is a professional practice rubric. So digging down into that just a little bit more. On the student growth side of things, student growth has changed as well. There is, this thing just doesn't student growth scores now exclusively are all student growth percentiles, and I'll show you, just give you a little snippet about what that means. But basically, the assessments that we're looking at are NWEA, PSAT, SAT, and MSTEP. Scores are generated from those assessments. A little bit, I'll explain that a little bit more. But that same data set is used for the students tied to an individual teacher to generate the growth scores for that teacher. The students that are in the building, all those SGPs for all of the students in that building are tied to the administrators that are associated with that building. So likewise, just kind of enlarging that, all of the students in the entire district, those SGPs generate for any district staff, including the superintendent. So it's not like it's a different assessment that teachers are assessed by, their student growth scores, same assessment, it just exponentially gets larger for the population that's being assessed by that tool. So what is an SGP, student growth percentile? That's kind of weird. The word that I would say is it's appropriately complex. Historically, when we thought about, student growth, what most people typically really were thinking about was proficiency and how many students were proficient on a particular test. So here's a set of standards and how many students met that standards. Growth is a different concept. Growth takes scores from students in a prior assessment and really measures these students, this is where they performed last time, how are they performing now? And SGPs specifically, they take in an assessment year, they take all of the students across the nation that, or states, depending on which type of assessment you're using, and they take the students who performed in a similar range. They take all of those students, and that's the example that you see here on the screen. So these students all performed at grade level, above grade level, below grade level, but all of those students that were in that same range. And it tracks them a year later and now sorts those students. So how many of those students, so these students that were middle of the pack, a year later, it then ranks them. And of those kids, some of them performed above their peers, some of them performed below their peers. That's truly measuring growth against similar age students or similar performing students. So this is truly a growth measure as opposed to just how many kids were proficient. Very different. From one of the that's challenged with a proficiency model, when you think about kids who previously were performing at really high levels, it's pretty tough if you're kind of at the top of your game to keep getting higher because you're kind of there. And sometimes on the opposite end, for those kids who really aren't demonstrating compensated many things, they may actually make a whole lot of growth but still not be proficient. So proficiency doesn't really work in that model. This is a much better, really measuring the impact of what happened in that classroom and on those groups of kids. So again, the same type of percentile, it's what we measure teachers, principals, and superintendent all through. It looks at 3 years worth of data. If there's 3 years worth of data available, that isn't always the case, but then you can see how it breaks down percentage-wise in those years. So that's on the growth side of things. That's, again, 20% of the overall evaluation, so relatively small. 80% is a more traditional, those areas that are assessed. This model shows you that there's really instructional leadership, communication, community relations, professionalism and ethics, visionary leadership, and this slide lost one, so we'll pick it up over here. But 5 different components, and these are the components that really the board will be looking at when we go and discussing when we go into closed session next week. Those components, there's all 6 of them. Each one of them has its own set of rubrics. And for example, we're going to take just a really quick look at, I think we've got organizational management in here. Oh, somebody's doing that. So this is an example, and for the board, just kind of, you might remember, our last tool, you can see those performance indicators all the way to the left. There are 4 for this particular component. In our last tool, you had to rate each individual performance indicator, and it was a little bit of a cumbersome process. Here, what the goal is, in organizational management, there's our definition at the top, that's what we're looking for. These are the indicators that tell us how we want to assess that. And ultimately, these are the 4 areas: exemplary, effective, developing, or needing support. The board will be asked to, for this particular component, based on those factors, make a decision about which one of those ratings for this area, and then the 5 other areas. So again, in closed session, we will have those discussions. I think that goes into here. There we go. And those ratings will be combined with the growth score, and that's how we get to the final overall score. The student growth rating has actually already been calculated because it used most recent assessments, so that is actually available to you if you want to take a look at it now. We do include kind of a breakdown by building, so those building scores that you see there, those are what building staff, same score that the building staff is held accountable to. So those things are available and will be a part of the final document. When we go into closed session, again, we really will discuss those things. You will come to consensus on ratings and make a decision. We will then return to open session where those overall ratings will be read aloud and the board will vote to take action. That's it. Any questions that you have for me? So next week, we will send you an email just kind of as a reminder how you can get access into review those materials. Matt's self-evaluation will be in there.
I was just going to ask that question.
Yep.
He does a self-evaluation.
Yep, he does a self-evaluation. And again, this is, even though some of you have done this for a while, it is a new tool. So it will be new to all of us.
I can confidently say I use it the ISD once. It's a great tool, really. It's so much better than MPSD. So I think you'll be encouraged. It's a great rubric, right?
Well
to
done.
teachers that are in the room. So I do think it's really simple and it's easier to use.
Right.
So as a way of my update, my formal update is simply directing you to that shared drive, which we will give you directions in the email, just a reminder how to access it. And you will see under the shared drive, you'll click on LCS School Board. There's a number of drop downs there. You click on Superintendent Evaluation Cycle 2026. There are 7 component folders outlining the various things that Kim alluded to, including my self-evaluation. And then each of those folders is a description of the component itself and the variables that you're will be evaluating my performance on, and a separate folder where evidence is provided for you to review. That will be made available to you by the close of business on Friday with direction on how to access all of that and give you that between now and next week is that concludes my update.
And my presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that concludes our presentations for this evening. We we will go into our reports. So I think we have, the first one is the Personnel Committee, so I will share that report this evening. So our committee members were myself, Nicole Barr, Casey Carpenter, others attending, Matt Wandry, Kim Sieberly, Mark Rader, Erica Ingalls, and Mary Moss. The meeting was called to order at 6 p.m. Budget discussion, so the committee discussed the district's budget challenges, including the 26-27 budget development timeline and data showing ongoing decline in enrollment trends. Cost-saving measures being considered by the district were also discussed as ways to help offset the deficit. 27L, Educator Compensation Program. The 27L program was included in the state budget adopted in October to help offset retiree health benefit costs and increase compensation for school employees. And in December, the district received just over $600,000 for this purpose. After the Michigan Department of Education released guidance last week, the district developed a plan consistent with the guidance to present through the collective bargaining process. And then lastly, the superintendent evaluation process. Kim Sieberly reviewed the upcoming superintendent evaluation process, which we reviewed tonight at our board meeting and concluded with our closed session at the March board meeting. We will evaluate superintendent. And then our meeting was adjourned at 7:12 p.m. Any questions or comments from anyone? Okay. Next, we will go into the policy committee. Dr. Novak, would you please share us the policy committee report?
Yeah, so we met on January 23rd at 1 p.m. via Zoom. It was myself, Craig Watson, and Tim Lifka. Others attending included Matt Wandry, Kim Sieberly, Erica Ingalls, Mark Rader, and Mary Moss. We again discussed the budget and the 2026 development timeline and data showing how we're going to deal with the declining enrollment trends. We discussed, of course, the cost-saving measures and reviewed ways to help offset the deficit. Our meeting adjourned at 1:50 p.m.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Okay. We will head into our finance and operations. Dr. Watson, would you please share us the committee report?
Certainly. Members present, myself, Summer Putnam, and Lisa Novak. Others attending, Matt Wandry, Kim Sieberly, Mark Rader, Erica Ingalls, Julie Geiger from Barton Mello, and Mary Moss. Called to order at 2 p.m. via Zoom. We discussed the Licata property sale. Erica Ingalls updated the committee on Lapeer area citizens against domestic assault, Licata land purchase. LCS has received an offer from Licata to purchase approximately 3.87 acres of property on Clark Road adjacent to their current facility for $27,090. It was the consensus of the committee to recommend full board approval at a future board meeting. And then we adjourned it to 11.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Thank you, Dr. Watson. And then next we have the Student Advocacy and Communication Committee. Mr. Van Wagner, would you please read in absence of Mr. Lifka?
Sure.
Thank you.
The Student Advocacy and Communications Committee met. Those present were Tim Lifka, Casey Carpenter, and myself, John Van Wagner. Others attending, Matt Wandry, Kim Sieberly, Margaret Tier, Erica Ingalls, and Mary Moss. The meeting was called to order at 3 p.m. via Zoom conference. We discussed the budget. The committee discussed the district's budget challenges, including the 26-27 budget, development timeline, and data showing ongoing declining enrollment trends. Cost-saving measures were being considered by the district, were also reviewed as ways to help offset the deficit. District marketing. Marketing strategies for the district were discussed in an effort to better promote student programming and district success stories. Matt Wandry, along with the board member Casey Carpenter, shared their vision to better market the district's unique programs and the student experiences through storytelling, leveraging local media, and engaging student production classes. The committee's plans to explore ways to improve student-based marketing efforts and attract more students to Lapeer schools. The meeting was adjourned at 4 p.m.
Any questions or concerns? Thank you, Mr. Van Wagner. And then Ross. We have the Teaching, Learning, and Technology Committee. Mrs. LeVar, would you please share the committee report?
Yes, I will. The Teaching, Learning, and Technology Committee met on January 29th at 6 p.m. Present were myself, Summer Putnam, and John Van Wagner, along with Michelle Bradford and Mary Moss. The committee discussed the dyslexia law update. Michelle provided an overview of the dyslexia law's requirements, such as universal screening, intervention plans, and teacher training to be completed by September of 2027. The district received a grant to purchase Orton Gillingham materials, which are approved by the state, though the law is unfunded. Michelle addressed concerns about how the new requirements would fit into existing curriculum and how Orton Gillingham materials would be integrated into the district's curriculum to comply with the science of reading aspect of the law. We also discussed overnight out-of-state field trip requests, a field trip request for the LHS Key Club to travel to Ann Arbor, Michigan on February 27th through March 1st, 2026 was discussed, and a field trip request for the HOSA students to travel to Traverse City, Michigan on April 17th through the 19th of 2026 was discussed. It was the consensus of the committee to recommend approval of these field trips. They will be placed on tonight's board agenda for full board consideration. We adjourned at 6:26 p.m.
Okay. Any questions or concerns? Thank you, Ms. LeVar. Okay, that concludes our reports. We will head into our action items. So we have a consent grouping of approval of minutes of January 7, 2026, regular board meeting. We have field trip requests. The Pierre High School Key Club to travel to Ann Arbor, Michigan on February 27th to March 1st, 2026. HOSA students to travel to Traverse City, Michigan on April 17th through the 19th, 2026. DECA students to travel to Detroit, Michigan on March 6th and 7th, 2026. And then we have second reading and adoption of board policies. Policy 3230, professional staff evaluation, school administration. Are there any items anyone wishes to remove from the consent grouping this evening? Okay, I'm hearing none. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion that the reading of the minutes be waived, the consent agenda items be approved as presented.
Support.
Okay, I have a motion and a support. Dr. Novak. Dr. Watson.
Aye.
Mrs. LeVar.
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye.
Mr. Van Wagner.
Aye.
Mrs. Putnam says aye. Motion carries. Okay, next we have the 2026 MASB Board of Director candidates. So
Open for discussion.
it is open for discussion. And I believe the candidates, I thought were in the very
They're at
back
the very
of the
back,
packet
yeah.
at the last. So there was two candidates, Richard Hill and James Johnson. So we can also, I can get a motion and support, and we can have discussion after that as well.
I'd like to make a motion that the board vote for Richard Hill for the MASB Board of Director for Region 5. Support.
Okay, so I have a motion and a support for Richard Hill. Any discussion on the motion?
I just liked his biography as well. I think he reached out to us via email and, seemed very personable and asking questions and I know I'm definitely supportive of that. I agree. It has nothing to do with the fact that he's from Kearsley Community Schools, which is my alma mater. So
It certainly sounds like it is. The first thing said about it.
Well, if you look at the experience that he has and the fact that, yes, he did reach out to us and, he has 30 years. I mean,
I was gonna say,
Lisa, how many years do you have?
Goal setting.
9. You have 9. Summer, how about you?
I, 7.
No, this is your
This is my 7th year. Yeah.
Craig, I know you and I, we're going on our 6th. Casey, you're new. John, you're what, 1? All together, we probably don't even match 30. I mean, the fact that this man has dedicated this many years of service to his community, to his school, that right there seals the deal for me. So that's why I am choosing him. It has nothing to do with Go Hornets. Because I am a Lapeer. I am a Lapeer mom, proud.
I think you got that in twice so far.
As well, he's held all the offices too. Absolutely. There's such a just a wonderful display of his service to the community.
Any other discussion about it? Okay. Dr. Novak?
Aye.
Dr. Watson?
Aye.
Mrs. LeVar?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Van Wagner?
Aye.
Mrs. Putnam says aye. Motion carries. Okay, that concludes action items, so I will open it up to board member communications.
I guess I'll start. I thank you everyone for being here. We appreciate hearing your input, and I'm a processor, so I've got to think about it and really take some time. But again, I appreciate the fact that we heard all different types. I have a fun story to share. As I walked into a local business today, I ran into someone that knew me and I wasn't quite sure who they were and realized I knew them too. But they were sharing about LVP, Water Peer Virtual Partnership, and how they had met with Michon and were going to send their student there, and then the connection with the ISD as well, and that he was going into a program there. And I thought how cool it is that I sit on both boards and got to experience this from the community. So while this is a thankless job at times, right, and I appreciate the encouragement, it was fun to be in that position and to hear about their success stories and how their son is so excited, you know, to be a part of LVP as well as you know, the ISD program and how that will further their career someday. But the person, I just want to mention that I think it's important that Michon does a great job and we appreciate her. And a lot of times, again, she's behind the scenes. But I mean, this was really how she took the time to meet with them one-on-one and how important that was. So just wanted to say, yeah, that was just a really cool experience. So thank you.
Again, thank you to everyone for showing up. Either side of the coin, that's what our community is made of. That's how we make everything up too. We do have processes in place. That's what we do too. We don't just make decisions. So I like that. That's what we're here. Thank you to the person who said thank you. Thank you to the person who brought information to us as well. We get educated here as much as we can also, and we appreciate that. As for the deficit, I will give all of my board salary back to the school to help with the deficit. Just so you know.
Make that a
Duly
traditional
noted.
slide, Erica. Thank you.
$0 a long way, Erica.
Just I offer. Go ahead.
So I also want to thank everyone tonight for their comments. It's great to see the room full when there's nights that we have here that there's only 1 or 2 people. You know, we heard some vocabulary tonight that we normally don't hear, but I'd like to recognize Superintendent Wandry for his wonderful use of the word matriculation. I almost can't say it. He used it successfully 3 times and he deserves a gold star.
Remember that during the evaluation process.
He can't spell it, but he can say it.
No quandary, he can say it.
But I was also reminded when I looked at my own calendar this morning that this is the birth date of Rosa Parks, which then reminded me that traditionally this is Black History Month. And so I started thinking about some of the books that I've read on some of the wonderful contributions that we've had in this country. And one book that came to mind was American History in Black and White. An incredible book if you've never read it before. Tells some incredible stories. On the front of the book, it shows several of the men who were elected to Congress in 1878. 1878, we happen to have 23 black men voted into our U.S. House of Representatives, 13 of which were former slaves, and they all were incredibly articulate. And if you have a chance, take the time to look up some of their writings. They're masterful in what they had to say. So, That's it.
I would just like to share that I love books. Books are an escape. They're an adventure. They have given me such joy. My mom taught me how to read when I was 4, and there's a photo of me at Kersley School.
We knew we'd get free in.
As a 4-year-old, reading books to a classroom of 2nd and 3rd graders. It was by my doing that they decided that I could jump forward to 2nd grade as a 4-year-old.
Oh my God.
That did not work, so they put me in 1st grade. So I was one of the youngest graduating classes of 1992, having just turned 17 the month prior.
From where?
Sorry. And reading has been my life. I love to read. As I said, it's an escape, it's an adventure. It has brought me great pleasure. It has taken me on many journeys. It has encouraged me to read more, to do more investigation, to watch more documentaries, to do more because of books. I do not take it lightly, the concerns that are being raised tonight. I have read 2 of the books that was brought up, the 19 Minutes and what was the other one?
Speed?
I'm sorry?
Speed?
No, I didn't read that one, it was the other one. The Lovely Bones, that she loved. So I just want parents to know and the community to know that I don't want to ban books, okay? I don't want to ban books, but I do want to provide appropriate materials for our children. That is my job. That is how I have translated my role as a board member here. I have been very fortunate to serve for the last 5 years, and I intend on running again when my seat is up. And we will take this process into consideration. We do have a process. Mr. Wandry has assured us of that, and nothing is just going to disappear forever. We're going to do the process the right way. We're going to have input from many people, community, staff members, and board members. And I appreciate your trust in us. I appreciate you believing in us and thanking us for our role here. And I just want to reassure all of the parents, people here, thank you so much for coming out tonight. It's very rare that we have a house full, so thank you very much. And I just want you to know that books are the best, and I hope that our libraries can continue to thrive and be utilized by the kids. And there's a lot more that I could say, but as Lisa alluded to, there's a lot to process tonight. There's a lot to process. And so please know that we will make the best decisions that we feel is right and best for our children in Lapeer. I yield the balance.
I said I wasn't gonna go after April. I mean,
Yeah, you didn't jump. I should have jumped.
I'm not crying though. I'm not crying this time.
I also want to thank everybody for coming. As a new board member, I get to, there's a lot to take in and digest here, and I will not take it lightly. I'd like to go a little different direction and share a success story with the from the community. My son is doing the firefighting young learners program, and amazing program. I want to thank our local community members for pushing that. Cannot say enough good things about it. Came home the other night, super excited. He was CPR certified, so I think those are awesome programs that are coming available in our community, and I appreciate them being welcomed into our schools as well.
Thank you. I too want to thank everybody this evening as well, bringing all of your passions. We see it. There is a lot to process. And we don't take anything lightly. I think you can see that, and we've displayed it, and we're true to. We're up here, doing the best with the information that we have to be able to process, within the guidelines that we have to process it in. So I just want to take a moment. We'd love to see you all on Monday night at our opening of our Performing Arts Center. We're so proud of that. It's at 6 p.m. That's right. And honestly, that Performing Center is a cherished item in our community that helps continue to bring us all together. So I think it's just wonderful for you guys to be there. I'll be there for sure. I think I'll be joined by my board colleagues as well. But I look forward to seeing you there. There'll be food.
Oh, yeah, I'll be there.
But it's going to be amazing to be able to showcase that we were able to take all everyone's thoughts and put it together and have such a cherished center for us to use as a district, the community. So with that.
And as Bill said, I mean, we were able to bond that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, thank you to you guys
Exactly.
for passing that bond and letting us do this for our students. So we do appreciate it and we value that. Great.
Absolutely.
So I'll turn it over to you, Superintendent Wondry.
Thank you very much, Madam President. As a former history and civics teacher, I'm heartened by the display of our community this evening. I think it's very easy to be disenchanted with the current political discourse, state, local, federal level. Turning on the news today is a very depressing endeavor. It's very caustic. I don't see a lot of well-meaning adults engaging in legitimately productive discourse. I felt that I heard that today. Some of the things that I think are very important to highlight that many of you articulated, that we do have very different views of society's role as it relates to the management of these complex issues. I heard words like review versus ban, and no, nothing has been banned, but we reserve the right as an educational institution to continually engage in review. Just because a process of any type, at one point being anything legitimate, viable, good or bad, we reserve the right to continually review any material put in front of students. That engagement that we're about to endeavor to undertake, like they say in real estate, the three most important words are location, location, location. The three most important words in this review are process, process, process. And to simply engage in arbitrary removal and permanent banning of any material or process because 1, 2, 3, or 10 people think it's right is never sound practice. So why we're all here is because there is going to be, these books seem to be the linchpin of this conversation, but a larger review of all of our collections as we begin to evaluate what's the most appropriate for students. There is a very well articulated policy in the district as it relates to this review, right down to who it shall include as a member of the review process. And that's going to include a number of the folks that many of you identified as wanting to be part of this process, including media center specialists, current classroom teachers, members of the community, in certain cases age-appropriate students, building administrators, district administrators. And I guarantee that once that group reviews not only the books in question, the larger collections as a whole, and the existing process that we engage in to approve and purchase future texts, that many in this room will both agree and disagree with the ultimate decisions of that body. As well-meaning citizens, that's okay. I once heard, as a former human resource director, that the best bargain contract is one where both sides walk away angry. And that will most likely be the case here. I am not the arbiter of what is good and right or wrong in morality and virtue and the law. I am a public school district superintendent whose primary function it is to manage processes that yield decisions that can be trusted, I believe was a word heard consistently, by the community as a whole. This board, for those maybe attending this school district's board meeting for the first time, is a well-meaning group of people. You heard a lot of laughter, positive interaction with you as community members, our administrative staff, and one another, because while we're dealing with serious issues, we can do so in a lighthearted and positive manner. And that's the world we choose to operate in. Doesn't mean that we're not going to have serious conversation, debate, argument, maybe some raised voices. Certainly, the robust debate is a healthy component of our democracy, and we're not afraid of that. That being said, what was on display today is what I hope to see in the future of this discussion as we model for our young people. No one in here, including the people sitting at this table, have cornered the market on knowing what's best for all kids at all times. We all are well-meaning people who think we have the best interests of young people at heart. What I hope to model for those young people is that when the adults in their community have a disagreement, they can do exactly what happened tonight. Get up, speak with passion about issues they believe in, listen to those with whom they disagree, maybe engage in quiet or not so quiet conversation after the fact, after these meetings, and continue to engage in dialogue. I'm not saying that that will ultimately lead to some great kumbaya moment where we all agree. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. And I am okay with that. I'm okay with the uncomfortability of disagreement, as we all should be. Our nation was not founded on widespread universal agreement, nor will it persist based on that same expectation. That being said, I am going to yield the decision-making of this to many of the people that are going to be identified on these committees, in trusting that based on listening to your feedback, the process outlined for them, and a number of outside, let's say, rating agencies or listservs or things that rate these types of books can offer them. And again, that is our ultimate goal, is to evaluate materials that, based on the values of this community, we deem appropriate. That is a loaded statement, because what we could have that statement defined in this room 40 different ways. And it is not for this board, who attempts to maintain an apolitical posture as much as possible. We are not a political board. This is a board representative of our entire community. Our job is to teach young people how to read, write, and do math, not how to teach them how to live or what to think. We teach kids how to think. Teaching them what to think is your job. We believe in that here, and we safeguard that pretty passionately. So with that, I will conclude with one of the phrases that I heard that I think we should all leave here with, which is that the idea of respectful disagreement. You can disagree, you can agree with me or disagree with me, and whether you support why or how this came to pass, what we do moving forward, in my estimation, is far more important than why we're sitting in the room now. What was the genesis for that? And what I mean to say is the process we engage in, and we will be transparent about, is going to yield a result. How we debate that result, how we talk about it, how we interact with one another, is going to determine the ultimate outcome and how this issue is remembered in our community, because we've seen this issue unfold in other communities. I don't desire to mimic what I've seen in other communities here. Our students, our staff, and our community look to this board to ensure that there is professional management of this county's largest educational institution. And I, for one, as a superintendent for a decade and a half here, will guard that with considerable passion. That I will not allow, nor do I seek to allow, these board meetings to devolve into screaming and shouting matches where people are trying to score political points. That is not something that I think we should engage in. Not because I don't like people screaming and yelling. I can handle it with the best of them. But what our kids are watching, we need to keep that in mind. Because they are. And they don't have a whole lot to look at and evaluate right now on a state and national level. In my estimation, that I would want, that I have my young, I have 3 20-year-old children, 21, 23, and 25. And we talk a lot about politics, we talk a lot about social issues, we talk a lot about culture. And we have our family values, and I talk about this with my adult children on a daily basis. And one of the things that I lament in our current discourse is there's not a lot that ideas we believe in, yes, behaviors, no. And what I saw today was great behavior, great discussion, great articulation. It's my hope and prayer that that persists throughout the entirety of this process. I want to thank you for that, your decorum, your professionalism, and respect, and I think we showed the best of our community today. I thank you for that. With that, I yield back the balance of my time, Madam President.
Thank you, Superintendent Wondry. With that, I will take a motion.
Motion to adjourn. Support.
Okay. Dr. Novak? Aye. Dr. Watson?
Aye.
Mrs. LeVar?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Van Wagner?
Aye.
Mrs. Butler says aye. Meeting adjourned.